While Western military strategists and air-conditioned offices are still brooding over statistics and puzzling over Ukraine's mere survival, a technological revolution is brewing in the dusty basements and secret laboratories of Kyiv that the world has never seen before. Forget everything you knew about ammunition shortages, stalled front lines, or outdated Soviet tanks. The time for begging and pleading is over. Ukraine has stopped playing by the old rules. It has started completely rewriting the laws of war. We are witnessing the revenge of the underdog. It is an asymmetric revolution of unprecedented proportions. Imagine a tiny drone, hardly more expensive than an average laptop, hunts down a $10 million tank and turns it into a burning pile of scrap metal within seconds. This is no accident. It is a system. It is the ultimate struggle. Cheap versus expensive. Human intelligence against sheer, blunt mass. Have you wondered why Russian commanders can no longer sleep at night? Why NATO generals are hastily throwing their long-cherished strategy books into the shredder? Because Ukraine is making the battlefield of 2026 a bloody reality today. Here, victory or defeat is no longer decided solely by generals, but by AI algorithms that judge life and death in milliseconds. A form of warfare that learns faster than industry can produce. In this exclusive analysis, we look deep into the epicenter of this technological explosion. We reveal 5 groundbreaking weapon systems that are currently shifting the balance of power on the global chessboard in a massive way. We are talking about autonomous killer robots that hold positions for weeks without human intervention, lurking silently in the shadows. We are talking about high-tech lasers whose precise shot costs less than a cup of coffee at the bakery around the corner, a weapon that could herald the end of the expensive missile era. And we are talking about swarm intelligence that acts like a single deadly organism. Buckle up. This is not a dry review of history or mere reporting. This is the real blueprint for the future of global warfare. We are going straight into the details now to show you how the world is changing forever before our eyes. Let's go. To understand the technological explosion of 2026, we must look back to the cold February of 2022. Back then, the world believed Ukraine would collapse within 72 hours under the weight of Soviet iron. It looked like a fight between David and Goliath, a duel between outdated hardware and sheer superiority. Ukraine was once the industrial heart of the Soviet Union, the forge for aircraft carriers and intercontinental ballistic missiles. But after 1991, this heritage rusted away. When the invasion began, they had almost no modern defense systems. What happened next is studied today at West Point and Sandhurst as the miracle of adaptation. In the trenches of Bakhmut and the basements of Kyiv, something unique happened: the birth of garage innovation. While Western defense companies take years to develop new sensors, Ukrainian IT specialists converted $500 toy drones into precise tank killers within days. They used Starlink to coordinate artillery fire via an Uber-like app. This historical turning point marks the moment when Ukraine stopped being a mere recipient of old NATO stockpiles. Necessity forced them to digitalize the battlefield. They turned the country into the largest living lab in world history. Every failed Russian attack, every intercepted missile provided data that flowed directly into the code of new weapons. The historical background is clear. Ukraine skipped the industrial warfare of the 20th century and landed directly in the era of algorithmic warfare. What we see today is no coincidence, but the result of a 3-year evolution forged under fire. A country that once begged for tanks has become the most advanced testing ground on Earth. This is the foundation, and on this foundation now stand the systems that will change the face of war forever. Let's take a look at the first weapon of this new era. To understand why these weapons are so deadly, we must grasp the operating system behind them. Ukraine is not just waging war, it has hacked the rules of physics and economics on the battlefield. It is about 3 fundamental concepts that change everything. First, asymmetric destruction. In the old world, the one with the most expensive tanks and the most soldiers won. In Ukraine's new world, that is obsolete. We are experiencing the economic kill. When a $500 drone eliminates a $5 million tank, the mathematical backbone of the invasion collapses. It is the revenge of the inferior. You don't have to defeat the enemy, you just have to make it unaffordable for them to keep fighting. Every time a Russian general fires a missile that costs as much as a hospital, and Ukraine neutralizes it with a system the price of a used car, Ukraine Ukraine has already won. Second, war at software speed. Traditional armies think in decades. Ukraine thinks in hours. The country has become the world's largest living lab. A programmer in Kyiv writes new code in the morning to bypass Russian radio interference. At noon, this code is sent via Starlink to drone pilots at the front. By evening, Russian positions fall. This iterative evolution under constant fire means Ukrainian technology develops faster than the Russian bureaucracy can even understand the problem. It is an open source war where data is more important than diesel. Third, the Uber principle of death. While Russia relies on rigid Soviet chains of command, Ukraine utilizes total decentralization. Through systems like Delta, the battlefield is digitalized. Every soldier with a tablet is a sensor. If a reconnaissance drone sees a target, the information is immediately uploaded to the cloud. The AI calculates which gun is closest and issues the firing command, often within seconds without any bureaucratic blessing from above. This is algorithmic warfare. These three pillars, cheap asymmetry, rapid software updates, and digital networking, are the reason why by 2026, no conventional army will be able to stand against these innovations. It is no longer about steel against steel. It is about intelligence against mass. And it is precisely on this digital foundation that the 5 systems we are now analyzing in detail are based. Let's begin with the nightmare of all Russian logistics. But how does this living lab really work technically? It is the GitHub of war. While the traditional defense industry needs years for a prototype, Ukraine works in 24-hour sprints. The process is radically simple. A programmer in Kyiv writes code in the morning to bypass a new Russian radio jammer. By noon, this update is loaded via Starlink directly onto the drones in the trenches. By evening, Russian electronic warfare is already ineffective. This is not evolution. This is software development at light speed under maximum pressure. The heart of this architecture is the Delta system. Imagine a Google Maps for the battlefield. Every soldier with a tablet, every reconnaissance drone, and every satellite feeds data into a cloud. The AI analyzes this flood of data in real time, recognizes patterns, and suggests the target to the nearest weapon system. We're talking about sensor-to-shooter cycles that used to take hours and now take place in seconds. The technical framework is consistently decentralized. There is no headquarters that could be eliminated with a missile. Servers are distributed, communication is encrypted, and the hardware often consists of modified consumer goods. The specification of the future is no longer how thick is the armor, but rather how intelligent is the algorithm. In this war, the side with the most steel does not win, but the side with the fastest internet connection and the cleanest code. Ukraine has abolished the bureaucracy of death and replaced it with a digital flat rate for precision. This is the technological engine that makes the following 5 weapon systems possible in the first place. Here are 3 moments when this digital theory became brutal reality. Look at the Black Sea. The Russian Black Sea fleet was considered untouchable, a floating fortress, until the Sea Baby drones appeared. These are not ships in the classical sense, but high-speed robots loaded with explosives, controlled via a laptop from hundreds of miles away. A single one of these boats cost less than a luxury SUV. Nevertheless, they damaged the fleet's flagship and shook the strategically important Kerch Bridge. Without its own navy, Ukraine broke the maritime supremacy of a superpower. This is the ultimate asymmetry. A remote-controlled toy sinks billion-dollar investments. Imagine a Russian T-90M, the pride of the Kremlin's tank forces, tacked with modern armor. In the old world of war, you would need an expensive Javelin missile to stop it. Today, a $500 FPV drone is enough, assembled in a Ukrainian workshop from parts you can buy online almost anywhere. An operator uses VR goggles to fly the drone directly into the tank's sensitive turret hatch. Boom! Within seconds, $4.5 million turns into scrap metal. The mathematical law of war has shifted. When destroying a target is 9,000 times cheaper than the target itself, the classical army has already lost. In the ruins of Avdiivka, something happened that sounds like science fiction. A Russian unit desperately tried to storm a building from which continuous precise machine gun fire was coming. They threw grenades, used artillery, but the fire did not stop. When they finally reached the position, they found no bodies. They found the droid TW-12.7, a remote-controlled robotic weapon station. A single Ukrainian soldier from a safe basement miles away had held the entire sector via a monitor. The robot needed no sleep, knew no fear, and did not bleed. It held the position for 45 days. This is no longer an experiment. It is the decoupling of courage and risk through technology. These examples show Ukraine is not waiting for the future. It is forcing it with code, courage, and cheap hardware. But we must not be deceived. behind the shining headlines about high-tech wonders lies a brutal, unpredictable reality. Technology is not a panacea. It is a fragile house of cards. The biggest problem? The invisible war in the ether. Russian jammers, electronic warfare often turn the battlefield into a digital exclusion zone. What use is the smartest AI drone if its navigation system is made blind and deaf? It is an eternal cat and mouse game. Every Ukrainian innovation is analyzed and countered by the enemy within weeks. In this arms race, there is no permanent lead, only fleeting moments of superiority. And then there is the dangerous dependency. Ukraine builds these weapons, but it does not own the entire supply chain. Every microchip, every lens system, and every battery is a potential bottleneck. If global supply routes stall or political winds shift, the sources for this technological wonder dry up overnight. A high-tech war without its own semiconductor industry is a walk on the razor's edge. But the most disturbing question is of a moral nature. What happens when we hand over control entirely to algorithms? A robot that holds an area for 45 days is efficient. But a machine that decides who is friend and who is foe without human intervention opens Pandora's box. We risk a world in which war is completely dehumanized, a scenario that gives even the developers in Kyiv sleepless nights. Ukraine is the most advanced laboratory in the world today, but the price for this knowledge is extremely high. It is an open-heart experiment where every mistake is paid for with blood. The path to victory is not paved with apps, but with hard, painful lessons about the limits of technology. Let us look 10 years into the future. What is happening in Ukraine today is only the prelude to a total technological upheaval. The tank is becoming a dinosaur. In 5 years, we will no longer be talking about individual drones, but about intelligent clouds, thousands of tiny machines acting like a single organism. They no longer need a radio command. They share a collective consciousness, a swarm that neutralizes an entire division in minutes without a single human having to press a button. War is becoming decentralized. Forget giant defense plants that take years for a new model. The future belongs to micro factories, hidden workshops with 3D printers that turn software updates into deadly hardware within hours. A war at light speed, fought with code instead of iron. But the biggest change affects us all. The line between civilian and soldier is blurring. If a programmer in his living room writes the algorithm that decides life and death at the front, is he still a civilian? Entire societies are becoming part of a technological defense matrix. And finally, the battle for orbit. Space is becoming the ultimate battlefield. Whoever controls the satellite constellations controls the truth on Earth. Navigation, communication, and target acquisition, everything hangs by a silken thread in space. We stand on the eve of a world where it is no longer the mass of soldiers that counts, but the quality of the algorithm. Ukraine has opened Pandora's box. In 10 years, no country in the world will fight the way they do today. The era of software-defined warfare has begun, and there is no turning back. What can we learn from this technological earthquake? Ukraine teaches us 3 hard-hitting strategies for the world of tomorrow. First, bet on asymmetry. In business as in life, it is no longer the one with the biggest budget who wins, but the one with the smartest niche. Ask yourself, what is your $500 drone moment? Where can you break through a massive blockade with minimal effort? Stop running head-on into walls, build tools that simply bypass them. Second, the end of perfection. In the basements of Kyiv, no one waits for a 100% solution. They build a product, test it under fire tomorrow, and update it the day after. Speed is the most important currency today. Those who plan for too long are executed by reality. Start imperfectly, but start immediately. Agility beats hierarchy every single time. Third, technological sovereignty. Dependence on external systems is a deadly trap. Ukraine has proven those who write their own code and understand their own hardware remain capable of action when everything else collapses. Invest in radical understanding instead of expensive black box solutions. Understand the algorithms before they replace you. The world is not slowing down anymore. The future belongs to those who behave like modern software, constantly learning, extremely adaptable, and ready to delete the old model immediately if it no longer works. Adapt or perish. The choice is yours. What do we learn from this technological earthquake? Ukraine teaches us 3 hard-hitting lessons for the world of of tomorrow. First, bet on asymmetry. In business as in life, it is no longer the biggest budget that wins, but the smartest niche. Ask yourself, what is your personal $500 drone moment? Where can you break through a massive blockade with minimal effort? Stop running head-on into walls, build tools that simply bypass them. Second, the end of perfection. In the basements of Kyiv, no one waits for the 100% solution. They build a product, test it under fire tomorrow, and update it the day after. Speed is the most important currency today. Those who plan for too long are executed by reality. Start imperfectly, but start immediately. Agility beats hierarchy every single time. Third, technological sovereignty. Dependence is a deadly trap. Ukraine has proven those who write their own code and understand their own hardware remain capable of action when everything else collapses. Invest in radical understanding instead of expensive black box solutions. The world is not slowing down anymore. The future belongs to those who behave like modern software, constantly learning, extremely adaptable, and ready to delete the old model immediately if it no longer works. Adapt or perish. The choice is yours.